How manipulation works in human psychology. Imagine walking through a thick fog. You know the ground is beneath your feet, but you can't see it. You walked in a straight line, yet somehow you've ended up back where you started. You reach out for a hand to guide you, but the hand that grabs, yours pulls you deeper into the mist instead of leading you out. This is what psychological manipulation feels like. It is not always a shout. Often, it is a whisper. It isn't a weapon you can see. It is an invisible shifting of the gravity in a room. You might be sitting across from a partner, a boss, or even a parent, and suddenly, reality feels slippery. You start to question your memory. You apologize for things you didn't do. You feel a heavy, inexplicable debt to someone who has taken everything from you. How does this happen? How do intelligent, rational, and strong human beings end up becoming puppets in someone else's play? Today we're going to pull back the curtain on the machinery of the human mind. We are going to look at the invisible strings that pull us, the biological vulnerabilities we all share, and the dark artistry of those who know how to exploit them. This is the anatomy of manipulation. The invisible architect. To understand manipulation, we first have to strip away the idea that it is always the work of a villain twirling a mustache. At its core, influence is a natural part of human interaction. We all influence each other. A baby cries to influence its mother to feed it. You dress up for a job interview to influence the hiring manager's perception. We are social creatures, and we survive by negotiating our needs with others. But manipulation is influence that has mutated. It is influence stripped of empathy and loaded with hidden intent. It is a strategy where one person's gain is built directly upon another person's confusion or loss. The manipulator is an architect who builds a reality that benefits only them, but they need you to live inside it. And to get you to move in, they don't use force. They use the keys you're already carrying in your pocket, your fears, your desires, and your need to be loved. The open door, why we are vulnerable. You might wonder why our brains, which are designed to keep us safe, allow us to fall into these traps. The truth is the manipulator hacks into the very systems that make us human. Think of your brain like a high-security fortress. It has walls, guards, and watchtowers. But it also has a back door that is always left unlocked. That back door is your need for connection and belonging. For our ancestors, being cast out of the tribe meant death. So we evolved a deep biological imperative to trust, to fit in, and to please others to ensure our survival. Manipulators exploit a specific cognitive flaw, known as the truth default theory. We are biologically hardwired to assume that the people talking to us are being honest. If we had to analyze every single sentence anyone ever said to us for deceit, society would grind to a halt. We assume truth because it is efficient. The manipulator knows this. They rely on the fact that you are projecting your own empathy onto them. You wouldn't lie to destroy someone, so you assume they wouldn't either. Furthermore, our brains are addicted to consistency. Once we make a choice, like accepting a job or saying, "I love you," we will perform incredible mental gymnastics to prove to ourselves that we made the right decision. This is called cognitive dissonance. When a manipulator hurts us, our brain doesn't want to admit we are in danger. It wants to preserve the image of the relationship. So, we rationalize, we make excuses for them. We become the lawyer for our own prosecutor. The toolkit of control. Let's look at how this plays out in the real world. Manipulation isn't just one technique. It is a toolkit. And usually, the first tool pulled from the box is the most intoxicating one. Consider the story of Sarah and Mark. When Sarah met Mark, it wasn't just a spark, it was an explosion. Mark didn't just like her, he studied her. Within weeks, he was telling her she was the soulmate he had waited a lifetime for. He sent flowers to her office, texted her good morning every single day, and planned their future together in vivid detail. This is love bombing. It is the weaponization of affection. It feels like a fairy tale, but it is actually a grooming process. Mark was flooding Sarah's brain with dopamine, the same chemical released by cocaine. He was creating an addiction. He was establishing a baseline of intensity so that later, when he withdrew his affection, Sarah would do anything to get that feeling back. He wasn't loving her. He was hooking her. Once the hook is set, the dynamic changes. The texts stop coming as frequently. The compliments turn into backhanded critiques. When Sarah asks Mark why he's being distant, he doesn't answer. He sighs. He looks at her with disappointment and says, "You're just being too sensitive. You're imagining things. I'm fine." Here enters the most insidious tool in the kit. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is not just lying. It is an assault on your reality. It is an attempt to overwrite your hard drive. When Mark tells Sarah she is imagining his distance, despite the evidence, he is forcing her to choose between her perception of reality and her relationship with him. Because she's addicted to the love-bombed version of him. She chooses him. She starts to mistrust her own mind. She thinks maybe I am crazy. Maybe I am too demanding. This leads us to our next scenario, one that happens not in a romantic relationship, but in the colder lights of an office. Meet David. David is a young, ambitious graphic designer. His boss, Eleanor, is charismatic and successful. One afternoon, Eleanor calls David into her office. She looks stressed, overworked. She says, "David, I know it's the weekend, and I wouldn't ask this if I didn't trust you more than anyone else here. The team is letting me down. I need you to finish this project by Monday morning. I know you're a team player, not like the others who just clock out." David cancels his weekend plans. He works until 3 a.m. He feels special. He feels chosen. This is the double bind of flattering guilt. Eleanor has framed the request so that saying no doesn't just mean declining work. It means admitting he isn't special, that he is, just like the others, and that he is betraying her trust. She has weaponized his desire to be competent and valued. When Monday comes, Eleanor barely glances at the work. She points out a font error and walks away. David is crushed. He works harder the next week, chasing the validation she dangled in front of him. This is intermittent reinforcement. It is the same psychological principle that makes slot machines addictive. If you won every time, you'd get bored. If you lost every time, you'd quit. But if you win sometimes, unpredictably, you will pull that lever until you're bankrupt. David is pulling the lever, hoping for Eleanor's praise, which comes just often enough to keep him trapped. The architecture of fear and scarcity. Manipulation thrives on high stakes. If you have time to think, to consult a friend, or to breathe, the manipulator loses power. Therefore, they must create urgency. Imagine you are looking to buy a used car. You find one you like. The salesman sees you looking at it and checks his watch. He lowers his voice, leaning in. "I'll be honest with you," he says. "I have another couple coming to look at this in 20 minutes. They called twice. I can hold it for you, but I need a deposit right now. Otherwise, it's gone." Your heart rate spikes. You stop looking at the engine or checking the tires. Your focus narrows to one singular goal. Don't lose the car. This is the scarcity principle. By creating an artificial time limit or a sense of limited supply, the manipulator bypasses your logical brain and triggers your primitive fear of missing out. You make a decision based on anxiety, not value. We see a similar but more emotional version of this in family dynamics. Let's talk about the story of Linda and her mother. Varsaylin Metten-Linda is 40 years old, a mother herself, yet she feels like a child when she visits her parents. Her mother often says things like, "I guess I'll just spend Christmas alone this year. I know you're busy with your new family. I don't want to be a burden." Linda cancels her own plans to drive 3 hours to see her mother. This is guilt-tripping, specifically the martyr complex. The mother frames her own emotional needs as a burden she is willing to bear. A loan which paradoxically forces Linda to rush in and fix it. The mother is managing Linda's behavior by triggering her sense of obligation. If Linda doesn't comply, she is the bad daughter. The manipulation works because it attacks Linda's identity as a good person. The silent weapon. Sometimes the loudest manipulation is silence. Let's go back to the story of Sarah and Mark. After an argument where Sarah finally stood up for herself, Mark didn't yell. He didn't argue back. He simply stopped existing for her. He walked past her in the kitchen like she was a ghost. He slept on the couch. He didn't answer her texts. This is the silent treatment. It is a form of punishment designed to erase you. In our evolutionary past, being ignored by the tribe was a precursor to death. Being invisible is terrifying to the human brain. It causes physical pain, the same areas of the brain that light up when you break a bone light up when you are socially ostracized. Mark is waiting. He is waiting for the pain of the silence to become greater than the pain of the original conflict. He knows that eventually Sarah will break. She will apologize for things she didn't do. just to hear his voice again, just to exist again. When she finally apologizes, he returns to being warm and loving. He has successfully trained her. Standing up for yourself equals pain. Submission equals love. The erosion of self. What happens to a person after months or years of this? The damage is profound. It is not just about a broken heart or a lost weekend. It is about the erosion of the self. Victims of chronic manipulation often describe a feeling of brain fog. They have trouble making simple decisions, like what to eat for dinner, because they have been conditioned to outsource their decision-making to the manipulator. They lose touch with their intuition. That gut feeling, the one that says something is wrong, has been systematically disabled, labeled as paranoia or craziness by the manipulator. You begin to walk on eggshells constantly. Your body exists in a state of chronic stress. Cortisol floods your system, leading to anxiety, insomnia, and even autoimmune issues. You become a shadow of your former self, constantly scanning the environment for the manipulator's mood, trying to predict the weather of their emotions so you don't get caught in the storm. Self-perception shifts from "I am a capable person" to "I am lucky they put up with me." This is the ultimate victory for the manipulator. You police yourself. You don't need them to shout anymore. You have internalized their voice. The mirror of recognition. So how do we break the spell? The first step is recognition. You cannot fight a fog. You have to wait for it to clear, enough to see the landscape. You must learn to listen to the quiet signals your body is sending you. Manipulation almost always creates a dissonance, a gap between words and actions. Watch for the rule of 3. If a person does something that hurts you once, it might be a mistake. If they do it twice, it's a pattern. If they do it 3 times, it is a program. It is who they are. Pay attention to how you feel after interacting with them. Do you feel energized and clear? Or do you feel drained, confused, and guilty? Do you find yourself constantly explaining their behavior to your friends? He didn't mean it like that, or she's just under a lot of stress. If you have to act as their PR agent to the rest of the world, you are likely being manipulated. Look for the shifting goalposts. In a healthy relationship, expectations are clear. In a manipulative one, the rules are constantly changing. You finally achieve what they asked for, but now they want something else. You cleaned the house, but you didn't cook dinner. You cooked dinner, but you were too loud. You can never win because the game is rigged too. Ensure you are always chasing. The shield. How to protect yourself. Once you see the strings, you can reach for the scissors. Protecting yourself from manipulation requires a fundamental shift in how you interact with the world. The strongest defense is boundaries. A boundary is not a threat. It is a definition of what you will and will not accept. It is the fence around your yard. The manipulator hates boundaries. They will test them. They will say, "You've changed," or "You're being selfish." When they do this, you must employ the broken record technique. This is where you state your boundary calmly and repeatedly, without getting drawn into an argument. "I cannot lend you money." "But I really need it. I thought we were friends." I understand you're in a tough spot, but I cannot lend you money. You're being so cold. I hear that you're upset, but I cannot lend you money. You do not justify. You do not explain. You do not defend. JADE, justify, argue, defend, explain. Do not do it. When you explain, you give them leverage to argue. When you simply state, you close the door. Another powerful tool is the grey rock method. This is used when you cannot completely cut the manipulator out of your life. Perhaps they are a co-parent or a colleague. You become as boring and uninteresting as a grey rock. You offer no emotional reaction. You give short, factual answers. Yes, now I see the manipulator feeds on emotional supply. Your anger, your tears, your joy. If you starve them of that reaction, they will eventually get bored and move on to a new target. Finally, you must reclaim your reality. Write things down, keep a journal. When the manipulator tries to gaslight you and say, "I never said that," you can look at your paper and know the truth. You don't need to show them that proof. It won't matter to them. You need the proof for yourself. You need to rebuild trust in your own memory and your own mind. Conclusion. The pen is in your hand. The journey out of manipulation is not easy. It involves realizing that. Some of the people we love or respect are using us to meet their own needs at our expense. It involves the painful work of untangling our identity from their web. But there is a profound power on the other side. When you stop dancing to someone else's music, you start to hear your own rhythm again. You realize that your empathy, your kindness, and your willingness to trust are not weaknesses. They are beautiful traits that simply need to be guarded by a gate. You are the author of your own life. For a while, someone else may have grabbed the pen and written some dark chapters. They may have written you as the victim, the sidekick, or the fool, but the pen is back in your hand now. The page in front of you is blank. And this time, you get to decide where the story goes. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us on this journey of understanding the human mind.